Start Ayin Hey Amud Beis in the middle of the page. Vim Hayishal Yechidim. Hayishal Yechidim. We're talking about if there's two chatzeros, and we had a whole discussion about the rights of walking, of trespassing by the inner courtyard. To get to the Rosh Hashanah, they had to walk through the outer courtyard. And we had a machlekes, maybe possibly a three-way machlekes. Rabbi Akiva and the Rabbanan, Regel HaYiseres, Regel HaMateres, if they made an Eiruvin in the inner one, if they made it together with the outer one, that would be the best. Let's say there were only two people in the courtyard, one in the inner courtyard and one in the outer courtyard. So they don't need an Eruv. There's no problem. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, Tani Rebbe, Hayu Gimel Asurim. Rebbe says that if there's three people, it's Aser. So that would mean it doesn't matter where they are. If there's three people in the inner courtyard, then I understand there's a real issue there, because the inner courtyard needs to make an Eruv. If they don't, they become Regel HaYiseres, a forbidden in their own area. And the rule was that Regel HaYiseres is a Seres in the next area. But it doesn't say that. It says if there's three people within the two courtyards, that could mean that the three people, one is in the inner courtyard and two are in the outer courtyard. That wouldn't answer the inner courtyard. The outer courtyard would need to make an error, but the inner courtyard should be fine. So, Amalahu Rav Bibi says to them, must have been that Rav Yosef said it to the students. Rav Bibi pipes up. He says, Leita Tzisulei, don't listen to Rav Yosef. I know Amrisanale. I was the one that taught it to him. And I didn't say that, or at least not the way Rav Yosef said it. I didn't say it in the name of Rebbe. It's not a Brisa or a Mishnah. I said the name of Rada Barav. It was a later, I think it was a student of Rav or something. I said it in the name of Ravad Barava. And what was the reason? It's because there's a rabbim in the outer courtyard. So there's a possibility that people may mistake it and think that the rabbim is in the inner courtyard, because they know that there's three people within these two courtyards. So it appears as if there may have been two in the inner one. I mean, it's like a confusion to them. They know there's three people. Are you in the inner one or are you the outer one? So it looks like there's a Regel HaYiseres and it's walking through the outer courtyard. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says to this unbelievable Gemara. It's Marid Avram. That means Eibishter. God of Abraham. Rabbim b'Rebbe Yechlefli. I mixed up Rabbim with Rebbe. He gave me the reason, because there's a rabbim there, and if the rabbim isn't, if there's more than one person, there's a crowd. He gave me the reason because there's a crowd, and I heard the word rabbim, and in my memory I thought it was Rebbe. I'm trying to figure out if Rabbi Yosef's memory worked with vision or if it worked with audio. The sound. Now, Rebbe, because he forgot his learning, and it's coming back to him, and he's remembering something of it, and he thinks that what he really was supposed to remember was Rabbim, and he remembers Rebbe. So I'm thinking it would be easier if it was a visual. He didn't remember it like as a picture. I don't know how they. Okay. Now, Shmuel Amar. Shmuel argues with this statement. And Shmuel says, Shmuel says, no, if you have two in the inner courtyard, then it makes sense that the outer courtyard should be Asr, because you needed an Eruv in the inner courtyard. And if you don't have that, then it becomes Regel HaYiseres, forbidden trespassing. Forbidden to in their own courtyard. So then when they walk through, when they trespass through the other one, then they make the other one asa. But if they're in the outer courtyard, if two are in the outer courtyard, so what's the problem with the inner courtyard? It's fine. That's Shmuel's opinion. So he says, Ad Shnaim b'primis rachad b'chitzayna. Amar Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says, V'nachri hareo karabim. Now, Rabbi Elazar is following Shmuel. And in Shmuel, he says that I know it's mutter if there's a Yisrael in the inner courtyard. Just one. But if that inner courtyard is not containing a Yisrael, it's containing a Nachri, a non-Jew, then that's already considered a rabbin. The Gemara asks, Yisrael according to Shmuel, Yisrael, one Jew in the inner courtyard is mutter. Why? Tamanda yada yada. Because whoever knows that the Jew is in the courtyard, in other words, there's three people within two courtyards. Whoever knows where's the third one? Whoever knows that the third one is in the outer courtyard, then good. He knows that the inner courtyard is mutter. And if he doesn't know, it's a saver Eiruvin Erev. He probably made an Erev. So that's why Shmuel says it's not a problem. Either you know the truth, or you assume that they fixed it. You don't know anyway, so why should you assume not? Nachri nami, if it's a non-Jew also in the inner courtyard. Amrinan, we should say, the yada yada, the layada savar agire aiger. Either he knows that there's only a single person in the inner courtyard, which should not be a problem. And if he doesn't know, and he thinks maybe it's a Jew and a non-Jew in the inner courtyard, so he should assume that the Jew rented the rights from the inner courtyard. He doesn't know anyway, so why? How do you fix it up by the Yisrael? The same way you fixed it up by the Yisrael, you fix it up for the guy. Mimanavshach. He probably did it correctly. The Gemara says no. If there's a non-Jew in the courtyard, if he would have rented it, it would have been the talk of the town. Everyone's talking, you heard the Jew rented from the guy the rights, and in the mikveh they would have discussed it. We don't have that. So that option is out. There's only one question left. Is he in the inner one or is he in the outer one? Because of that, Rabbi Elazar says that we have to suspect that people will think he's in the inner one and it's a problem. Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Yud Batim Zelif Nemizah. We have 10 houses, one after another, and you have to walk through all of them. Let's do a picture. I think it'll be. Oops. I mean, it was pretty clear anyway, but the pictures, yeah. Okay. There's 10 houses, and that's called the Pnimi. I can't read what it's saying over there, but that's the, maybe it's saying, it says Pnimi. That's the inner house. All of these are what the inner house uses as his walkway. That's just his walkway. Yeah, I know they're houses also, but they're also a walkway for the inner house. So it says like this. This is Rabbi Yehuda saying in the name of Shmuel. Pnimi Naisen Eiruvai V'dayai. We need to be talking about that there's other houses here. Like in this picture, he did this well. As usual. He has two other houses here, and he has his courtyard here. So the walkway part is just this. All of these are houses also, but the guy on the inside is walking through all of them. So they have to make an Erev Chatzeris. Gemara is saying is that this one needs to contribute. This one needs to contribute. All of these 9 don't need to contribute except for the inner one. Because walkways don't need to contribute to the Erev. It's called the Beis Sha'ar. It's the gate at the entranceway, which is usually held by a guard. Usually it's a guardhouse. Here we're saying that this is the gate by the entranceway. What's the reason? We'll see in a moment. Rabbi Yochanan says the chitzon. Now, what we're starting over here understanding is that this is the chitzon. Rabbi Yochanan says the pnimi. Shmuel says the pnimi, And Rabbi Yochanan says the chitzon has to contribute. These two, of course, have to contribute. Question is, what about this one? That he's saying for sure does. Shmuel agrees. And Rabbi Yochanan's adding this one. Okay, so the Gemara now says, chitzon beisharhu. The chitzon is just a walkway. Well, I'm translating as a walkway.
When it says Eruv, where are we saying you put the Eruv? Where's the location that you're putting the Eruv?
It could either go into his house or it can go into the other houses, or it can go into other two houses that are on the side that are not part of the Beis Shar. Here we're talking about contributing. The Gemara says chitzon Beis Shar. It's a kasha in Rabbi Yochanan. Chitzon is the outer one is the Beis Shar. The Gemara answers chitzon shel pnimi. It's that one in the second one from the end. That's the one that needs to contribute. He said chitzon. He means chitzon shel pnimi. So what's the machlek Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan? If the first house or the first two houses have to contribute, Marsav Beis Shar, the Yachid Shmei Beis Shar, Marsav Shmei Beis Shar. The shaila is it considered if there's just one person there that the second house is considered a Beis Shar? Rabbi Yochanan says yeah, and Shmuel says yes, it's already a Beis Shar. Rabbi Yochanan says no, just one house with another house doesn't become a Beis Shar. It's when you have two houses together, then you have another house. That becomes a Beis Shar. I think we're going to quote the Mishnah here. No. There's a Gemara that we had, and it's also a Gemara in Sukkah. It says that Hanoisin Eiruvin Beis Shar Achsadra Umerpesas Einei Erev V'Hadar Sham Einoi. So that's the Gemara in Sukkah. If someone puts his Erev into a Beis Shar, which is a guardhouse, a house at the entranceway, Achsadra, which is an open area, or Merpesas, or a porch, Einei Erev, it needs to go into a dira. And then it says V'Hadar Sham, and anyone that lives in those areas, which is living either in the guardhouse or in an open area like a gazebo that's open on all sides or something, and in a porch that's not enclosed, anyone that lives there doesn't need to contribute to the Eruv. And if they don't contribute to the Eruv, then they don't answer the rest of the Eruv. That's not considered a dwelling place. So all of these houses are not considered real dwelling places. That's the gist of this. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabbi Baravua, Amar Rav. Rav Nachman says the name of Rabbi Baravua, his father-in-law, in the name of Rav. Beis Chatzeres v'Gimel Batim, Beineim. 2 courtyards, and there's 3 houses. Let's take a look at a picture. 2 of the houses are going to be open to the courtyards. There's going to be 1 house in the middle. So this is not the picture that I'm looking for. And that's a Tosfos. Let's do Beis Chatzeres, the Gimel Batim. This one is going to help us. This is a little better. Okay, this picture, it's more confusing than we, it's more details than we need over here. But what we're looking at is, here's 1 courtyard, and here's a house that's open into that. Here's another courtyard, and here's a house that's open into that. This is the interesting house. That's the interesting one. It's not open to any of the courtyards. Because of this house, that makes this house look like a Beis Shar. It makes this house look like a Beis Shar. So now we have other houses here. We have houses on the other ends, whatever. Okay. So it goes like this. Zeba derech zeh v'noisen Eiruvin b'zeh. This person walks through the courtyard. He walks through the house. And he puts his Eruv in the further house. Zeba derech zeh v'noisen Eiruvin b'zeh. So what we're doing here, let's get that back. So here's what he says. Bias Aleph, Ba Derech Zeh, comes through bias number 3. And he puts his Eruv in number 2. Okay, now, Zeba Derech Zeh, this one walks through bias 1. And he also puts his house in bias 2, which means that this house is a Beis Shar for bias Beis, and this house is a Beis Shar for bias Aleph. They considered it a Beis Shar. They consider basically this house and this house are considered a Beis Shar, and the Eruv doesn't get placed there. Emtsoi, the middle house, okay, that's an interesting halacha that we may have mentioned that before, and I don't know if everyone agrees with that, but that's the middle one becomes the place for the Eruv because the other houses are the Beis Shar, and the house that you put the Eruv in doesn't need to contribute because the Eruv is there. That's good enough. I don't know if did we mention that before? I'm not sure if we said that clearly. Okay. Badik le rachva l'rabanan. Beis chatzeres ubeis batim. Beineim. You have two courtyards, and there's 2 houses in the middle. This is Rachva is asking his students to see if they're sharp. It sounds like a Thursday night. He wants to ask them a question to keep them busy when they're so. He says like this: Zeba derech zeh v'noisen Eiruvin b'zeh. One courtyard puts his Eruv in the further house. Why? Because he considers the closer house to be a Beis Shar. Zeba derech zeh v'noisen Eiruvin b'zeh. And then the opposite. The other house puts his Eruv in the further house. And he also considers it to be a Beis Shar. Let's see if there's a picture. Now, there's conflicting... this is a great picture. This one puts his Eruv into that. Whereas the Eruv for this courtyard is in this house, because this house is a Beis Shar. The Eruv for this courtyard goes into this house, because this house is a Beis Shar. So is it going to work? She says like this, Kanu Eruv or like Kanu Eruv. Is it a good Eruv or not? Mi mashvele legabi dahai bias or legabi dahai Beis Shar. Can you have conflicting opinions about the house? For this house, it's a bias for the other one, and for this chutzner, it's considered a Beis Shar. Legabi dahai Beis Shar, legabi dahai bias. Can you have that? Can it be a Beis Shar relative to the house to the other house? Amrlei, so they responded, Shneim like Kanu Eruv. The Talmidim said that it doesn't work. Manafshach. If you consider it a Beis Shar, so here's the Gemara that I was quoting, the Brisa. If it's a Beis Shar, then you can't put the Eruv into it. If you consider it not a Beis Shar house, then you're putting it in a house that you didn't make an Eruv with. You're going through a house that you didn't make an Eruv with. If the middle house is a Beis Shar, the one that gets you to that, so then you didn't make an Eruv with that middle house. Why? It didn't contribute. So the Gemara asks, or maybe it's Rachva asks, Maishma mider Rava. What about something that Rava says? If someone says to two people, go make an Eruv for me. Amrulai, they said to two people. Two people said to two messengers, go make an Eruv for us. One of them was able to get to that place. We're talking about an Eruv, that's an Eruv Tchumen. One of them was able to get there and put the Eruv down Ben Hashmashas. The other one was able to get there Mibayid Yom while it was still day. So Zeshi Eruv Lam Mibayid Yom Nechal Eruvai Ben Hashmashas. The one that the Eruv was there, Mibayid Yom, something happened and the Eruv got eaten Ben Hashmashas during the twilight. So we're here with a doubt: is the twilight considered day or is it considered night? Because the Eruv was there by day, but when twilight came in, it's supposed to be there by night. It's supposed to be the Bein Hashmashas. Why? Because it's supposed to be there at the beginning of Shabbos. But we don't know what Bein Hashmashas is. Is it the beginning or is it before the beginning? So, and the one that put the Eruv Bein Hashmashas, his Eruv also got destroyed. But it got destroyed once it got dark. So Shneim Kana Eruv, both of them are good Eruv. Now the problem here is, how are you viewing Bein Hashmashas? If you view Bein Hashmashas as night, and that's why the person that put the Eruv there by day, it's a good Eruv because it passed through the beginning of Bein Hashmashas, and therefore it was there at the appropriate time, and now it gets destroyed. So fine, but then how can you then say that the other person's Eruv that was put there Bein Hashmashas and it gets destroyed after that? By the time it was placed, it was already night, according to the way that we viewed it from the first perspective. And then say the opposite. If you view Bein Hashmashas as day, and that's why the person that put his Eruv there, Bein Hashmashas, is good, then the person that put it there by Yom, it got destroyed, Bein Hashmashas, it got destroyed before Shabbos. So you can't say that they're both Kana Eruv unless you have a special leniency. You say, oh, we look at both ways, lenient. So that's what we do, Shneim Kana Eruv. So if you're ready to do that, Shneim Kana Eruv, so then why can't you go back to these two houses and to say, these two houses that are in between the courtyards, and say, for this one, we'll consider it a Beis Shar. That's what we're doing by Bein Hashmashas. Saying, for this one, we're considering it by day. For this one, we'll consider it a bias. Why can't you do that? You did it for the Bein Hashmashas. The answer, Achiyashta. Hasam Safik Imam Safik Leila. Over there, it's a question if it's day or night. Lay Minkar Milsa. It's not an obvious thing if it's day or night. It's a real question. Okay. Aval hacha yidl gabi high bias, lagabi the high bias, yidl gabi high bishar, lagabi the high nami bishar. But over here, it's a house. It has to get a status. It's not a time that's in limbo. This is a house. You can't make a joke out of the takanas of the chachamim. You say yes, it's a beishar. It's not a beishar. That's too much. Rashi concludes this perek with v'leinitin pelet tzedukim lirdes. We can't make a joke out of what the sages instituted because the tzedukim are going to reject it. It will give them what to laugh about. Okay, Hadron Lachador. Okay, we're going to start a new parak. It says Chaloin Shebein Beis Chatzeres. In order for courtyards to make an Eruv, they have to have an entranceway between them. Now, each courtyard can make its own Eruv. That's no problem. If two courtyards want to join together, there has to be some sort of passageway between them. Oh, it's stam a wall. It's not going to work. Remember, we had a discussion if a sulam that goes up, if that's considered an entranceway that goes over the wall. That was a discussion. Let's say there's a window. There's a window between the two courtyards. Is that enough? So the window is daled al daled, b'tay chasara, and it's under 10 tfachim in the height of the wall. It's not high up on the wall, which means that in the mechitza, usually mechitza is 10 tefachim. This chalain is within the first 10 tefachim from the ground. So it's really there in the wall. So the rule is like this: Marvin Shnayim. If they want, they can make two separate Eiruvin because there's a wall there. It's not. But if they want, they have the option of making one joint Eruv, because that chalain is enough of a entranceway that it could be considered one courtyard. Let's say the window is not 4 by 4 tvachim, it's very small, or the window is above 10 tvachim in the wall. Now a wall in general is 10 tvachim, so a window above the wall is just like, let's say you consider it like no wall. So let's say the whole wall wasn't there above 10 tvachim. So if the whole wall isn't there, it's still a wall. So what does a window do for me? Nothing. So a window above 10 tvachim is nothing. So then ma'arvin shnayim ve'im ma'arvin echad. It's two separate rishus. You don't have an entranceway between them. You have a complete mechitza between them. There's no entranceway. Leima Tanan, the Gemara says, stomach, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, we had this opinion once. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel held that lavud is 4 tvachim instead of 3 tvachim. Usually we don't say this, but there is this opinion. So what are we saying over here? Why does the window need to be 4 tvachim? We think it's a din in lavud. So we said it, we have a stam mishnah. Leima Tanan, stomach, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. We have a stam mishnah that fits with Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, that lavud is when I have two pieces of material or wall, and there's a gap between them. So if the gap is not more than 3 tvachim, we say that it's totally closed. Look, there's always gaps between everything, scientifically, between the atoms. So how big can those gaps be? And it's still considered solid. So the solid, it's the way it works is up to 3 tvachim. It could be a gap. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says up to 4 tvachim. So what we're saying here is that because it's more than 4 tvachim, it's not considered closed, and that's why it's acceptable. So the Gemara says no. You could say that our Mishnah really holds that lavud is 3 tvachim. So why did we get 4 tvachim over here? What is this fourth tefach? If you want it not to be closed, 3 is enough. That's only when you're trying to make it attached. It's like when you're trying to make boards attached. But if you're trying to make a doorway, afilu rabbanan maidu. It's not a din in lavud, it's a din in an entranceway. To make it just not attached, not entirely solid, that would have been 3 tvachim would have been good. Here we're looking to make it into an entranceway, a passageway. The ikadalet al dal chashiv, ilay chashiv. Okay. 4 by 4 is going to be considered a window or a passageway. Pachis midalet chulu. Let's say it's less than 4. 4 by 4. Or let's say it's over 10 tvachim. In other words, the two requirements that we had within 10 tvachim and 4 by 4 aren't there. Gemara says pshita. That's obvious. You just told me what you require. Why do you have to then tell me the reverse? That if you don't do it like that, it's not good. I would know automatically. If you don't do it right, it's not good. You don't have to go and tell me that if you do it the other way, then it's not good. Just tell me one and I'll know. So it's coming to tell me a chiddush. Taima de kula l'mayla miyad. When it says l'mayla miyad, it means that the window is entirely above yad. That's why it's puzzle. But if it started, part of the window is within 10 tvachim. Then ma'arvin shnayim b'mratz ma'arvin achad. You could also make it one eruv. Because you don't need the whole window to be within 10 tvachim. Even if part of it is within 10 tvachim, that's good. Let's see if there's a picture. Beautiful. I don't know what that aleph is. Chalein dalet al dalet is not good. I guess that's telling me that it's within the 10 tefachim, and those are going to be acceptable. The bottom of it is within the 10 tefachim. Okay. The next Gemara, actually, I'll put it back on for the next Gemara. We have another piece before we get there. Tanina lahadu taner rabbanan. The diuk that you just made in the Mishnah is actually taught clearly in a brisa. The diuk was that if it's partially within the 10 tefachim, that's also acceptable. The taner rabbanan, tanina lahadu taner rabbanan. Kula l'mayla miyad. If it's entirely above 10 tefachim, u'miktsasa b'tei chasara. That means most of it is, yeah, it says kula. If the majority of it is above 10, but part of it is within 10, or kula b'tayich yod, or most of it is within 10, and part of it is above the 10, it's not a problem. You can still do an Eruv. The Gemara says 1 second. Once you tell me that if it's all above 10, but just a little drop on the bottom is within the 10, that's already acceptable. So then why do you have to tell me if it's all within the 10 and the drop above that it's still acceptable? Of course it's acceptable. Even if it was mostly above, it's going to be good. So sometimes it talks like this. It says the bigger chiddush first, and it says, and I don't have to tell you about that other case. That's what the other Gemara is explaining, the brisa. Sometimes it says, not only this, leizu afsu, not only this, but also a bigger chiddush. Sometimes it says the bigger chiddush first. Zu ve'in tzarech leimer zu. Okay. This Gemara, we have several places. This coming up Gemara, we have several places in Shas. Read it once before in Eiruvin, and you have it in Sukkah. There's usually some pictures in Taisus that help us, or that throw us off. It goes like this. Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Chalain Agel. Let's say there's a round window in a wall. The requirement is that you need to have 4 by 4 tefachim for a window to be acceptable. So it needs to have a circumference of 24 tefachim. Let me see. I didn't go through this in the book, but let's see if he helps us out. Okay, we have the window. Yeah, this is pretty good. What he's about to tell us is that if this is 4 tefachim, what he wants is that this should be 24 tefachim. Now we're going to ask right away that how do you get that? But let's see. Now the bottom of it should be within 10 tefachim. And what we're thinking is like this, that the square itself is 16, because 4, 4, 4, and 4 is 16. So one more, there's 8 extra tefachim in the circle because it's 24. So 16 plus 8 is 24. There's 8 extra tefachim here. That means that each side has an additional 2 tefachim over the square, right? Because that would make 8. The square itself was 16. The circle is 24. So what we want to do is that there should be 2 extra tefachim here on the bottom that are sticking into the 10 tefachim, which would tell me that the bottom of my actual square, the actual window is within the 10 tefachim from the floor. So I need 2 tefachim of the circle to go down. I think what it means is 2 tefachim this way. doesn't make sense. Because if it would be 24, then this whole thing here would be 8 tvachim. So it would mean 6 tvachim from here to there. From the line. If right, let's say a circle is 3 times the diameter. So this would be 8 across, which doesn't make sense because it's really only 4 plus a little bit. But let's say it is. So so there would be 6 tvachim above the 10 tvachim from the floor. This is the wall. The wall ends right here, that dotted line, and 2 tvachim would be within the 10 tvachim. Okay. Shim Yerbenu, because if you would square it off, or you look for the square inside, I guess, Nimta Masha B'Taychud, then it would be a drop within the 10 tvachim, which is what we require. A drop of the window needs to be within the 10 tvachim. The Gemara says, 1 second, the obvious question. Michti, let's take a look at this. Anything that has a circumference of 3, it has a diameter of 1. It's a ratio of 1 to 3. 1 in diameter is 3 in circumference. 3.14 or whatever. So if that's the case, B'Treiser Sagi, look, it's 4 tvachim across. Let's see if they tell me. B'Treiser Sagi, he does it for us over here. If it's 4 tvachim across, then it should only needs to be 12 tvachim around. 4 times 3. Why does it need to be 24? It's a huge gap there. The measurements are very off. So the Gemara answers, 1 second, you're not doing it right. Because Hani Mili Bi'igula. This is if you look at a 4 tvachim diameter and you make a circle around it. But that's not what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a square. We're dealing with a ribua. Okay. We're dealing with the square. If you want to make a square, you're going to need more. So this is going to be I'm not sure what it means by that. Okay. So the Gemara says, let's see, how much do you need? You see, we were just doing a diameter across, and we did it, which is the same, and diameter up and down. We said each one is 4, but we lost the corners of the square. So then you said it's 12 because 3 times 4. But what if you have to add on corners now? So if you have to add on corners, michti, kama meruba yeser ala igel. How much is a square more than a circle? So now let's look at this picture over here. How much is this? If the circle was 12 and we want to make it into a square, the square would be 16. Now, I know the square is 16 anyway, because 4 by 4 is 16. If I have to measure each side, 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, it's going to be 16. And the circle was 12. So 16 in relationship to 12 is a quarter more, right? 4 times 4 versus 4 times 3. It's 1 quarter more. So it says Revia. We know that a square is a quarter more than a circle. So B'shitza Sagi, it should only be 16. What are you telling me about 24? Gemara says, 1 second. You're only holding now by the circle. You put on corners. You made it to 16. But Rabbi Yochanan was talking about a circle around that. So now we have to look at this picture. What about the circle that goes over the square now? How much is that? So, Hanimili Gula Denafik Migaribua. You were only talking about a circle that was in a square. I don't know what the word Denafik does. If I read it, Hanimili Igula Migaribua. That was a circle in a square. It makes it easier for me to read. Aval Ribua Denafik Migarigula. But a square that's in the circle, that's what. which means now I'm looking at, that's what it means. The nafik means now, but look at the circle with the square inside. So being a tvei, you need more. My time, why do you need more? Mishum more the karnasa, because of what's protruding from the corners. The hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is longer than the legs, right? So Mishum more the karnasa. Michti. How much longer is the hypotenuse of a square over the legs of the square? Each amma, it's each square, every if it's an amma square, then the alachzain, the diagonal, the hypotenuse, is 1 amma plus 2/5. Okay, now let's take this over to tfachim, because that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with 4 tfachim. So if we had boxes of 4 tfachim, I wonder if he did it for us. No, he didn't do it for us. If I have a box of 4 tfachim, each one of those tefach gives me in the hypotenuse an extra 2/5, which means I have an extra 8/5. I have an extra 8/5 in the diagonal. 8/5 is 1 3/5. So that would give me
I think this Gemara has a diagram in Rashi.
Oh, really?
No?
Which Gemara do you have?
This one over here. It shows the.
Oh, you have the blue Gemara?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Oh, in Taisvis it has it. Yeah, no, Taisvis is going to explain. I'll get to that, hopefully.
There's
Just follow it like this. If I have 4 tefachim, and each tefach gives me an extra 2/5 in the hypotenuse and the diagonal over the straight line, so I'm going to have a total of 8/5 extra. 4 times 2, right? So 8/5. Now 8/5 is really 1 3/5. So if I had 4 tefachim, now I have 5 tefachim and 3/5. Now, but that's just here. Take a look at the picture of here. In this diagonal, that is 5 3/5. What is the circumference of 5 3/5? So 5 times 3 is 15. And 3 times 3 is 9. So that's going to give me 16 4/5, like it says over here. 15 plus 9/5 is 16 4/5. The way the Gemara puts it is, what are you telling me that because you're making a circle around the square, and then your diameter is not the legs of the square, but it's the hypotenuse of the triangle, of the 2 triangles, right? So you're telling me it's supposed to get to 24. It doesn't get to 24. From 16, it gets to 17 and minus 1/5, 16 4/5. The Gemara answers like this: Rabbi Yochanan Amar ki Dayani de Kisri. Dayani de Kisri had very strange math. Taisus tries to answer it, and we'll take a look at that. Ba'amrila karabanan de Kisri, and some say it's the Rabbanan de Kisri that did their math like this. Normally, a circle that's in a square is a quarter. It's a quarter less. But ribua migayi gula, but the circle that goes over the square, that's palga. That's already half more, which means that if I have 16 around, then 8 of them is going to be added to get the circumference of that, according to the Rabbanan de Kisri. Taisus is like, what? Like, how do you get that? But Taisus has a pshat, and anyway, that's the Rabbanan de Kisri, and the Gemara Sukkah says Rabbanan de Kisri. You see that they're not correct, and for some reason, the Gemara in Sukkah also does the same thing. If you want to make a round Sukkah, and according to Rebbe, where a Sukkah needs to be 4 amos by 4, it's mamish the same Gemara. So yeah, and it goes through with these options. And it says, oh, maybe we can learn like Rabbanan L'Kisya. The says, no, Rabbanan L'Kisya is, they didn't do it correct. Although, if you look at the picture now, Moshe, in Taisvis, it's very interesting. He's making a square of a 2x2. The circle, if I'm looking at the squares, the circle has a diameter of 3 by 3, which is a quarter more than the square. That's how he wants to view it. Now, the square, if you look at those squares, that's actually a 4 by 4. So it's double. It comes out, each one adds a quarter, which is a total of a half. So anyway, where the mistake is exactly is, I think if you're looking at area versus the perimeter or whatever. But anyway, that's how the Gemara learns this. Okay. Back to the text. If it's less than 4 by 4, the window is less than 4 by 4, etc., or if it's under 10 tefachim. This only works that it needs to be within. This is only this requirement of it being within 10 tefachim is only in a wall that's between two courtyards. Then, if it's within 10 tefachim, then it's acceptable. If it's above 10 tefachim, then it's just above the wall, which is anyways above the wall. There's no wall. So a window there doesn't help me. But if it's a window between two houses and they want to join together and there's no door, there's just a window. How do the two houses join together if there's no door? So they can join with the window. But where does the window need to be situated? It could be above 10 tefachim. In other words, houses is different than a courtyard. If they want, they could make one Eruv. My time, what's the reason? Basic command dami. The house is as if it's filled up. In other words, I don't view above 10 tefachim to be above the wall. I view the whole house that he could be standing on anything in the house and he still has access. It's not a real partition. In the house, above 10 tefachim doesn't mean that it's above the wall, and that's not significant. Above 10 tefachim is also considered a hole in the wall, because I view the house as if it's filled up, as if the floor is raised. My time, basic command maladam. Okay, Esvei Rav Nachman. Rav asked Rav Nachman the question. Echad li chalain. He's quoting a brisa. Whether it's a window, shebein beis chatzeres, between two houses, ve'echad li chalain shebein beis batim. This is the problem, shows up right away. Whether it's a window between two houses, ve'echad li chalain shebein beis aliyas, or it's a window between two attics, ve'echad li chalain shebein beis gagan, or it's between two roofs, ve'echad li chalain shebein beis chadarim, or it's between two rooms. Kulan dalet al dalet b'tei chasar. They all need to be 4 by 4 within 10. There's no question over here. The Brisa clearly says that all of these things need to be a window of 4 by 4 within 10 tefachim of the ground. Rav Nachman said that it didn't need to be that. Rav Nachman responds, Tirgma chatzeres. Translate the 4 by 4 within 10, that's only talking about the window in the courtyard. It says, well, echad li katani, but it says whether to me this or whether to me that, it's always going to be 4 by 4 within 10. Tirgma dalet al dal. He says, that's talking about that it needs to be 4 by 4. But the requirement of within 10, that was only on one of those. That was only on we said within 10 tefachim of the ground, that was because of the courtyards. But the requirement of 4 by 4, that went across the board. Ba'minei Rab Abba mi Rav Nachman. Rab asked Rav Nachman, Lul apsuach min abayis la'aliyah. Lul is like a small trap door. Lul could be a coop, a chicken coop as well. But here, a lul is an entranceway. Is like those flat doors. You have to push like a board aside. You climb up to the roof. So, tzarich sulam kavua la'atirei, ayin tzarich sulam kavua la'atirei. Do I need a permanent ladder there to be able to make an Eruv with my second floor? Ki amrinan basic command maladami. I know that you told me that a house is considered that it's filled up, and anywhere on the wall I can make a window, and it's considered that I'm attached to the next house. Hani mili menatzad. That's maybe only on the side. Aval be'em taloi, but not on the roof. Aydilma leishna. Maybe it doesn't matter. It's like it's filled up, and I don't need a ladder there. It's like it's filled. Amalei in tzarech. He says it's not necessary. Savar minei sulam kavua hu dein tzarech. Sulam arai tzarech. We thought maybe what he meant. This is Reb Abba asking Reb Nachman. Maybe what he meant was you don't need a permanent ladder, but a temporary ladder you have to have. Itmar Amar Rav Yosef Amnumi Amar Rav Nachman Echad Sulam Kav Echad Sulam Arai in tzarech. Whether it's a Sulam Kavur or Sulam Arai, either way, so it's two. Amar Rav Yosef Amnumi Amar Rav Nachman Echad Sulam Kav Echad Sulam Arai in tzarech. You don't need either of them. Commander Mali fills it up all the way to the top. Okay.